Hi, this is Jordan Fisher of Good Bones Properties, partner of Keller Williams, and I'm here again with Eric Maurer of Chicago Title. And today we're going to talk about title insurance in terms of what is a prelim, and what do you expect to see on a prelim, why is it important you get it, why is it important you read it, that kind of stuff. So you can help me understand that.
Happy to help you, Jordan.
All right. So talk to me about a prelim. What is a prelim? When do you get it? Why do you get it?
Prelim is short for preliminary title report, and that's the document that we use at Chicago Title to look at a particular piece of property to see what has been recorded against the property, ownership of the property, and that's what we base our title insurance policy on.
Okay. So when you read a prelim, what do you expect to see? Like, what are common things you're going to see when you read a prelim?
Well, prelims, they're always divided into two sections, a Schedule A and a Schedule B. Schedule A talks about the ownership of the property, who currently owns the property and how it's vested. Most times I say I've only seen it, actually 100% of the time, I've seen properties vested as a fee or fee simple, which is the most complete form of ownership one can have of real property. That's the vesting. Second item talks about the legal description of the property, and actually that is the legal description of the land. And quite simply, to really simplify things, title insurance is simply dirt insurance. We're not insuring the home, the structure, that's left up to a homeowner's policy. Mm-hmm. We are just guaranteeing that this legal description of this plot of land is what we're insuring. We're not insuring the structure at all. Mm-hmm. We're insuring it for the value, which is actually the dirt.
Okay. So first part of the prelim is talking about who the owner is currently in the property, to make sure that when you're buying a property, the person selling it is really the owner. Mm-hmm. Right? And the second part is more, as you said, it's about now other liens, right? Other things that are on the property, so you can see what's on the property.
Yeah, and that's called the Schedule B.
Schedule B.
The Schedule B talks about things like property taxes, what are the current property taxes on the property, loans against the property, or in California we call them deeds of trust. Mm-hmm. Those are typically loans. And then things such as easements or encroachment, or easements against the property, and any other judgments or liens against the property that the current owner may have against them.
Why should you care about that stuff? Like, if that's not your business, that's the seller's business. Why should you care?
Well, it's those are items. For example, a deed of trust or a mortgage is something that the seller is going to have to satisfy. They're going to make sure before we transfer the property and insure it and issue a policy, we're going to make sure that that lien is paid off, and that's part of the purpose of title insurance, is to make sure that the seller is transferring the title to the buyer free and clear without any encumbrances or attachments to the property. So at close, we're going to make sure that the liens are paid off, and then if you do see any judgments, commonly you'll see franchise tax board or IRS liens. Now, the thing that a buyer may be concerned with is if these tax liens are a large amount, they're going to need to be satisfied prior to sale, and they may impede the sale of the property. Currently, I came across a transaction that had a tax lien for about $300,000 against the property that's being sold for just under $1 million. So, based on the loans, if they were to pay off the tax bill, there wouldn't have been any proceeds. But this is usually that can be worked out. The seller is working with the IRS to reduce the amount, or the IRS is going to take a reduced payment, release the lien, and allow the sale to go through. So just because you see large encumbrances or large liens against the property doesn't mean the deal may go away or may not be a good purchase for the buyer. It just means there may be a little more work involved on the part of the seller and the seller's representation to clear these liens so the property can be released and transferred to the buyer free of any encumbrances.
Okay. So just so everyone understands, for example, if you're buying a $300,000 property and you look on the prelim and there's a $200,000 lien from Bank of America that the seller took out when they bought the house, and there is a $20,000 lien from a relative they borrowed money from that's on the house, right? That when you pay $300,000, the first $220,000 is going to satisfy those liens, right? And then there'll be $80,000 left for closing costs, whatever else, before the seller gets their remainder of those proceeds, right?
Right. Okay. And the key to keep in mind with the transfer of the property is that as the buyer is taking the property, they're not going to take the property subject to any of these existing liens.
They can't get title insurance without it, right?
Correct, and we're not going to insure it as a title company with these liens.
Right.
Unless, of course, the buyer agrees to it,
Right.
which I don't think they will.
Right. So if you're buying a property, the prelim is really important because you're going to see, number one, is the seller who's selling you the property really the seller? It'll be in the prelim. And number two, you'll be able to see what liens are there to make sure that your purchase price is going to cover those liens so you can buy the property. And as Eric was saying, right, you can't get title insurance unless you get the property free and clear. So unless your purchase price is going to satisfy all those liens and you get the property free and clear, you can't get title insurance. But that's why you have title insurance, right?
That's the purpose of title insurance.
Okay, so thanks for helping everyone understand that.
You're welcome. There's one more item that I want to mention about on the prelim. They're referred to as easements.
Easements, yes, please.
Easements are the right of somebody else, a different entity, to access your property or a certain portion of the property. Most commonly you'll see them from utility companies, say Edison.
So someone can just come on my property because there's an easement on my property?
Correct. They have the right to do so. They have the right to pass across the property and also to access a certain area. So say if it's the rear 6 feet of the property where the electrical or utility lines are, they can go across the property at any time to access those lines and to maintain them. They don't own, the Edison in this example doesn't own the property, they don't have an interest in owning the property, they just have a right to come onto the property and to take care of their telephone lines or
So very common, not to be freaked out about, but there are some easements that you should be concerned about.
Yeah, it depends what the buyer plans on doing with the property. Most easements, I say most, commonly they're along the periphery of the property, either the rear or along the sides of the property, but there have been cases where there's an easement that runs right across the property. And in this case, it could affect how a buyer would want to use the property. For example, if there's an easement that runs straight through the backyard and the buyer wants to put in a pool, well, that could affect how they want to use the property and the ability to place a pool. So it's very important for a buyer of a property to carefully read the preliminary title report. They will get a copy. It's part of the disclosure process, and the buyer will have to sign off as having read it. So it's important that they read through the Schedule A and the Schedule B of the property. If they have any questions, they can ask the realtor, or they can always contact the title company who's issued the report, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that they have on it.
Good. Yeah, your Good Bones Properties realtor will work with Eric, and of course you can always talk to Eric find out about whatever easements are there to make sure we go through the prelim and make sure it's all clear before you buy the property.
That's correct.
Great. Thanks, Eric, again. Appreciate it, and hope that helps you understand a prelim and what to look for.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Sure.